Welcome to Challenger Deep, athletes rising above adversity, where we explore stories of athletes who've faced their lowest points and risen to incredible heights. Did you know Challenger Deep is the lowest point in the ocean, making it the lowest point on Earth? When you're at your lowest, the beautiful truth is there's nowhere to go but up. We all face adversity, but how we choose to respond defines who we become. Join hosts Jeff Hagee and Tami Matheny as we share powerful stories of everyday athletes' resilience, growth, and triumph. These stories will inspire you to rise above your challenges and reach new heights. Let's dive in.
All right, welcome back to the Challenger Deep Athletes Rising Above Adversity podcast. We're excited to be here today, and we've got some really cool things that we're going to talk about today. Tami, do you want to start us off with talking about the new offer that we have?
Sure do. I'm excited to be here because I get a chance to share an amazing opportunity of rising above adversity that I got to experience myself this past week. But also, Jeff and I have been working on a store behind the scenes for some time now. And it's finally come to fruition. And we are so excited now that we have the Confident Athlete gear, t-shirts, sweatshirts, long sleeve shirts, lady cut, water bottles, hats, as well as This Is Good merch. So we are excited. Jeff's going to tell you how you can get it, and we look forward to seeing you guys wear the Confident Athlete. This is good.
Yes, and you know what? We do want to see you wearing it, and we want to see pictures of it. And we are going to be creating a Where in the World album on Facebook that we want to see different parts of the world that we've got people wearing this merchandise. So where you can find this, and we need you to make sure to use www.confidentathleteprogram.com/store. You'll be able to get it there. If you don't use the www, it'll just take to the Confident Athlete Program website. So make sure to put that in the beginning. But you'll be able to go there. You'll see all the Confident Athlete merchandise, all the This Is Good merchandise. And yes, please send us some photos of wearing it in different places around the world.
All right. I know you're jealous, Jeff, that I have a shirt on right.
She's got it before me. So I love it. And especially the color.
All right. Well, as I mentioned in the intro, I'm really excited. I think I'm still on cloud nine right now, Jeff, but I know you have followed a lot of what I do with some teams. I have been blessed to be a part of numerous championships with baseball, softball, field hockey, lacrosse, basketball, soccer, golf, tennis. And you always say this one was special, but this past week had to be one of the most special things that I've ever been a part of. I say this past week, it should be the whole season leading up to it, but it just culminated this past week. So I'm excited to talk about the lessons of rising above adversity, because that is the only way that, you know, those young ladies and myself get to say that we were state champs.
Hey, this episode of Challenger Deep Athletes Rising Above Adversity is brought to you by doTERRA, the world's leader in essential oils and wellness products. Are you ready to fuel your health and recovery like a pro? Listeners of this podcast can get 25% off all their doTERRA products and supplements. Head to the link in our show notes or go to confidentathleteprogram.com/doTERRA and start your journey to peak performance today.
You know, and it is really cool because even though most of the people you work with, I don't personally know, I feel like I do know a lot of them personally. And for you that are listening that haven't read This Is Good, you do need to go get that book and read the stories that Tami shares in there. But it is really cool to hear the stories. And, you know, in this podcast, we want to share all these stories of rising above adversity. And we were talking last week, and we've got so many stories of people we work with that we wanted to be able to share those. So I'm excited that Tami's able to share this today. So tell us more about what's going on, what happened.
Well, it's Byrnes softball. For those that aren't familiar, Byrnes softball year in, year out. is one of the leaders in South Carolina softball 5A. If they're not competing for a state champ, unfortunately, sometimes that's considered a bad year. So there's a lot of pressure. But I've been working with this team. I think I tried to count the years the other day. I think since 2016, and have been a part of 4 state champs, tons of runner-up, and upper state championships. But unfortunately, fortunately in the end, but the number 2 team in the nation, not state, happened to be the 2-time reigning state champs. Byrnes, we were the last team to beat them back early in 2023. And they've gone on to dominate the state and obviously, have national recognition, have their pitchers going to play at South Carolina next year, a couple other Division One. And they've just been dominating. They had an 83 game win streak going. Byrnes, we had to fight. We had a lot of obstacles along the way to make it to the state championship game. It's best out of 3 series. The first one was at Somerville. The game got moved up due to weather, and we had to travel, kind of some hurry up, get there. Had to play at noon on Monday. Came out 3-0 loser. Great game, though. Great softball game. Then Somerville has to travel to Byrnes on Wednesday. To start the game, this could be an elimination game for Byrnes. To start the game, Somerville scores 5 runs. The starting pitcher for Byrnes gets pulled out before she even completes the first inning. And Byrnes responds with 2 in the first, 5-2, kind of battles back and forth for a long time. And then Byrnes explodes for 6 runs to go up 8-6. Somerville comes back to tie it up 8-all. It goes to the bottom of the 7th, and bases are loaded, and a 7th grader for Byrnes comes up to the plate. She had maybe 10 at-bats on the year. Coach had put her in because they had worked. She's a tiny little girl, strike zone small. And the coach had worked with her, just fouling off pitches till she could put one down or got walked. And I don't know how many pitches she saw. I'd have to go back and count, 7, 8, till she finally drew the walk-off walk. Place was ecstatic. I mean, there were hundreds and hundreds of people at this game. So it sets up, a do or die 3rd game. Lots of controversy happened with that due to weather, due to the South Carolina High School League telling us to be somewhere, Somerville refusing to show up. So it got pushed another day. Lots of chatter of parents and fans going back and forth on social media, just, kind of added to the excitement. So we had to find a neutral site, play on a neutral site. The atmosphere is just electric. And Somerville goes up 2-0. And it wasn't like the other night where a lot of runs were scored, which, by the way, in breaking their 83 game win streak, that was the most runs they had given up all year put together, the 9 runs that we scored off of them. I don't think that starting pitcher had allowed that many in her life put together. So that was exciting, but you kind of knew that wasn't going to happen again. So a 2-0 ball game as it's getting late feels pretty tense. But those young ladies, a lot of stories behind the scenes, and hopefully we have time to share a few. But they didn't give up, and they tied it up. Had chances, had an opportunity 2nd and 3rd with 1 out, and couldn't get, that go-ahead run. And you kind of thought, did they lose their opportunity here? Well, it goes extra innings, and the 9th inning, I believe, people will have to check my stats. It's still a blur to me. They scored 2 runs, so now it's 4-2, and you think, oh, did we blow our chance? But like all year, never count them out. Those young ladies just fought and clawed and had the walk-off winning run and won 5-4. And if you're listening, you're thinking that's great, what a story. But again, Byrnes is very rarely the David in a David and Goliath story, but they really got to play that. And, we talked about David and Goliath and how does David take down Goliath? And we talked about that before game 2. And, David did it by believing in himself. And I think too many times when you're facing those Somervilles of the world, you have those doubts. Those young ladies never doubted. I think everyone else in the state did. And you focus on your strengths. And again, these young ladies, they didn't try to be anything that they weren't. If their strength was base running, they did that. If their strength was being the best cheerleader in the dugout, those young ladies did it. And it was just, they embraced their opportunity. So it was amazing to watch. And I'm gonna let you throw out some questions of what you'd like to hear more about, Jeff.
Yeah, absolutely. Because as you're talking about this, I mean, congratulations to them. Awesome story. So cool to hear that story. But I'm also thinking about our listeners. You know, they've got an advantage. They've got a mental game coach that's working with them, and they've got you there sharing the David and Goliath story. And as you're talking to me, because I know things on our program and stuff, I'm thinking of our battle of the bench training, our the different things. So for those that are listening, how, if you don't have a mental game coach, as a coach, what are you doing with this team to help them go into these games?
Well, number one, first of all, kudos. Do I have a part in being a mental game coach and helping them? Yes, but I'm not there without the coaches. And kudos to the coaches. They are very great at what they do. But they don't have that ego. They're very open to what else can we add. And I think a lot of coaches are, I don't need anyone else. I've got all the answers, or maybe they don't trust someone to come in. So first of all, I appreciate those coaches in trusting me. But second of all, they like to laugh that they're old school, but yet they have to be a little flexible. And this was the first year there was dancing allowed on the field. And when I'm talking about dancing, I'm talking about the entire team in between an inning. I think it was usually the 4th inning. The entire team went out and danced together. Well, tried to go together, but danced to Boots on the Ground. So if you've never heard that song, you need to listen to it. But it was hilarious, and the alumni they were just in amazement when they would show up and like, Coach Aiken's allowing this. But it's a testament to, rolling with the times. And she doesn't relax her standards, but she's able to relax other parts. So back to your question, Jeff, the number one thing is, yes, this is sometimes high stress, high intensity games that we're playing. But as a coach, you have to remember at the end of the day, it should be fun for them. And when it's fun, they're more relaxed to be able to play and compete to the best of their ability. Um, so it's making sure you are having fun with them. Um, we use the Rhino story, and I'll have to tell you that we really leaned into Crash of the Rhinos and have little squeaky rhinos. So it's having those little props, having those fun, allowing them to enjoy. Another team I worked with this spring, I forget which inning, but they would say, hot lava, hot lava. We got hot lava in here. And everybody had to jump up really quick with their feet. But it's just kind of letting the team have just a little bit of stress relief and fun in the dugout. Blowing bubbles. We used to take little things of bubbles and everybody would blow bubbles. So um, at the end of the day, realizing we play because it's supposed to be fun. And the more you relax and the more fun you have, then, the more you can rise up to the best of your ability.
I love that, because I can't tell you how many athletes I've sat down with to help them work through something they're struggling with. And that's the missing piece, is they quit having fun.
Yes.
And I, one of the things I love is when I'm revisiting with athletes and they have that total shift in the things they're talking about, and they talk about how much fun they're having and how fun that game was and how fun practice was. So yeah, I love that you've talked about that. Now, you brought it up and you actually brought this up in a text with me last week. So share the Rhino story.
So, I have that in the first Challenger Deep book, the crash of the rhinos, or crash of rhinos. And rhinos are called crash when they're collectively together, like a herd of cow, because they can run 30, 35 miles per hour, but they can only see about 30 feet in front of them. But they don't worry about what's beyond that, Jeff, because that comes up so quickly. But they're confident that if they stay together and just take care of what's immediately in front of them, they're going to crash through whatever obstacle is waiting on them, or that obstacle is going to get out of the way. Um, so to me, that story, that analogy, whatever you want to call it, is the perfect symbol for a team. If you stay together and you're confident in your next step together, just worrying about the present moment, then you're going to overcome any obstacle in your way. And so, I shared that with them. They bought into it. We had little squeaking rhinos, everyone did. And I would say we weren't always all year long in the moment. That was one of my frustrations leading up to the month of May. But something clicked in May. They got run ruled 10-0 and had a decision to make. And they became rhinos after that. And bat at bat, you didn't see the negative body language. You saw them trying to help the next player. There was an era, everyone was picking that young lady up, moving on. It was just amazing to watch. And they really did stay united. I can't tell you it was all rosy and they were each other's best friends all year, but in the moment they stayed connected and they would forget little irritabilities or whatever happens when you put, a group of young ladies together, um, and just chose to, focus on the bigger picture of accomplishing the bigger picture, and they crashed in like rhinos and crashed their way to a state championship.
So it's great to hear. I mean, it can obviously, with the history there and the talent, it's not necessarily a Cinderella story, but you can get to that point where you've got the 10-run game and there starts to be some internal conflict and it falls apart. So as a coach listening to this right now, what's your advice there when you're in mid-season, or especially if you're getting close to the end of the season when things are really getting, it's almost playoff time, those sort of things, and things seem to be falling apart? What do you do?
We had to play immediately after that. It was scheduled for 2 games. The day they got run ruled 10-0, had to turn around and play that team in 20 minutes again. And it was probably the maddest. They don't see me mad much, but it was probably the maddest I was. Not because we got beat by 10, but body language. And it just wasn't. I was like, what I'm doing is a waste here, because So I guess I took it maybe a little personal. Um, but the coaching staff and I just walked away, and I think we were like, said our piece and walked away. But you know, we're gonna see. We're gonna see how they respond. And I don't know if it was anything that the coaches said. Definitely, probably wasn't anything I said, but what the young ladies chose to do in that moment. And I would like to compliment probably the senior leaders best for that. Um, we worked hard. The coach recognized that, hey, we needed, to really build some solid leadership skills. And, there were collection of young ladies that never played, a manager that was crucial as a senior, to some of the key stars of the team. And they all brought a different area of leadership. But when they were collectively working together on leadership, it was hard to not listen to that strong group of young ladies. Um, was that part of it? I don't know. I believe it's the standards that are set in place. You don't get a team to bounce back if you haven't put standards, culture, expectations. This is how we're expected. And not the expectation of winning, but the expectation of the effort you put in, the mindset you put in. So I'm kind of rambling, but I think it started in the fall, and the hard work those young ladies put in, the buy-in into the mental game, the 6 a.m. lifts. And at some point you question yourself, am I really going to waste all that hard work I put in? And I think in leaning into the bigger picture and their why. And they would talk about their why before every game and say their why to each other. Um, so when you remember why you're doing something, and then you're faced with, oh gosh, you have a moment there where you have to decide if you're going to just let your why be sacrificed, or if you're going to find a way to bounce back.
There's a lot in that. That's awesome.
We could talk. We could do a whole year series on this. It really is, and it doesn't take. If other teams are listening that I work with, this does not take away from them. This is one of these magical moments. Winning a state championship takes talent. It takes luck. And then it takes buying into the hard work, the physical work, and the mental work. So, but there's a lot I've learned from this as well.
So first of all, before I forget, Tami and I use a process called the 7 levels deep to help people find their why. You can get that at www.jeffhagee.com/why. And I've got a blog post there that has a video and everything. And that's crucial. But
Yeah.
as you were talking about that, it was, they have that 10-run game. At that point, it's not what you said, it's not what the coaches said at that moment that won them the state championship. It's everything that worked up to that. And as you know, I was on a youth camp this weekend. And one of the things my wife and I did with these youth is we had these little papers, and they were just small, and they had 500 dots on each one. And it was a paint by numbers. And we gave all these kids these paint by numbers, and there was 120. So there was 60,000 dots spread between all these papers. And they didn't know what they were doing. All they were doing was what we told them, if it's an F, it's green. And, they're going through these painting, like, why are we wasting our time? And it was really cool because at the end of the day, we had taken these and we put them on a 4x7 piece of plywood, and it created this beautiful picture. And it was all those little things that they did without even necessarily knowing why they were doing it, because it was part of this team effort that created this beautiful end result. And that's what I was thinking about as you were telling that story. It's all those things. It's the 6 a.m.s. It's the self-talk training. It's all those things that you and the other coaches have done with them since day one, or for the seniors for however many years, that come to that point where, you know what, you just got 10 run. What are you going to do? And it's all that stuff that helped make them rise above.
And one thing too, I know I'm using a lot of analogies, and I don't know if I've put this in a book before, but you and I have talked about icebergs. And icebergs, the majority of the icebergs underneath the water that people don't see. And to me, successful teams have those icebergs that don't get the glory, that don't get the recognition, that help push the others up above the water. And there were so many icebergs on this team, from support staff. We had a trainer that showed up to the state championship game, and it wasn't even her day to train. So we had 2 trainers there. You've got this one senior who didn't hardly play a minute, but lived in the bullpen helping another pitcher get ready, and just devoted everything she had, knowing that she probably wasn't going to play a role on the field. We've had so many young ladies wait their turn when they could have been a star on another team. We probably had 2 of the best 3 pitchers in the state that happened to be on the same team. And either one of them could have started every game for another team. And they both had to sacrifice a little bit of that limelight, a little bit of that glory. But at the end of the day, we don't win that state championship without having both of them. Or we don't even get there without having both of them. So it's all of those little, them buying in to their what they wanted to leave as their legacy. And all of those other young ladies that knew they might not get a chance to play, but they wanted to be something part of something bigger. And that's what really excites me of watching this young generation and this collection of girls from different backgrounds, different walks in life coming together and giving up a little bit of their recognition, a little bit of their playing time, accolades, for a bigger picture. So I think that's what thrilled me the most.
That's awesome. Such a great story, and I love this. And you know what? This whole podcast is really about our book, Challenger Deep: Athletes Rising Above Adversity, of sharing stories like this of overcoming adversity and rising above. If you don't have the book, you can go to jeffhagee.com/free book, or you can get it on Amazon. But I want to throw a plug in here too for our program, because everything that Tammy's been talking about are the things that we work with our athletes and coaches and parents on in the Confident Athlete program. So if you go to confidentathleteprogram.com, you can get a 14-day free trial of the program and find out what it's all about. It's an incredible program. Like I said, it's not just for athletes, it's for coaches, parents, because it all ties together. Their success, as we talked about, started at the beginning of the season or way before season, and that's what got them to that state championship. So Tammy, thanks so
I
much.
really have to say,
Go
I
ahead.
don't mean to interrupt you, Jeff, but this team actually was one of the teams I shared with you that each had a copy of Challenger Deep: Athletes Rising Above Adversity. And they had to share the stories and what it meant to them. Whatever number your jersey was, that was the story they had to share. And they didn't see the fruits of the book last year, but maybe that was one of the pieces of the foundation that helped this year. So,
So the moral of that is, if you want to win a state championship, get every single player a copy of our book.
exactly. There you go. Guaranteed state championship, money back guarantee for the books. No. Again, I know only one team, is state championship, and this was for anyone listening in any sport. Um, if you don't reach it, it doesn't mean that that year wasn't a success. And I was asked that if they don't win the state this year, does that mean it's not a success? And I said, well, that'll be judged on, to me, all of the other little intangibles. Did they reach their potential? Did you give all you had? Did you stay true to the bigger picture? Were you a good teammate? Did you stay in the moment? And as an athlete in any sport, if you can do those things, you may not win that championship, but you're going to have no regrets at all. And you're going to know you did everything in your power. So to me, that's what success is. And then it gives you that chance to walk away with that ring.
Absolutely. You know what? That just reminded me so much of our interview with Josh on episode number 2. Go back and listen to it. The 2024 world champion bull rider. He went 3 years in a row of being number 2. And I brought that up in our interview, and he's like, yeah, I wanted to win the world, but I am proud of that. And I state championship, provincial championship, same thing, but in Canada, I had an incredible team that we went to the provincial championship. My brother's team smoked us by 36 points in the final game. I was still and I am proud of that team for what we accomplished that year. That's basketball, but yeah, it's everything that you put into it that gets you to that point that makes it all worthwhile.
I haven't heard that story. That might be another episode. I want to hear this, the brotherly rivalry.
We went back and forth all year. We played each other 8 times and had split, and the one that meant the most, he dominated. All right. Well, thank you, Tammy. I appreciate you sharing that story, and congratulations to the team for winning a state championship and everything you did to rise above your adversity to get to where you needed to be. So,
Well, I'm the messenger, and it's the athletes that have to take it and use it. And they took it and used it. And they took again, very talented team, probably the best coach team out there as well. So a lot going for them, but sometimes the mental edge, is the key. It always is the key, whether it's me or you or anybody else working with you. If you're not investing in the mental game, you need to. It is a difference maker.
Absolutely. ConfidentAthleteProgram.com. Thank you.
Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you for joining us on Challenger Deep, Athletes Rising Above Adversity. We hope these stories inspire and equip you to tackle life's challenges head on. Don't forget to visit www.confidentathleteprogram.com/Challenger Deep to get all of our free resources from the book, your copy of our book, and access to 2 free weeks of the Confident Athlete Program. Remember, in life, adversity only visits the strong. It stays forever with the weak. Let's rise above together. See you next time.